You are standing in front of an open refrigerator or scrolling a menu you have looked at 50 times before, and you genuinely cannot decide what to eat, not because there are too many choices, but because something considerably larger in your life is currently uncertain. A relationship, a job, a diagnosis, something big and genuinely outside your control. And this one small decision has somehow absorbed all of that larger anxiety, becoming impossible in a way it has never been before. You are not indecisive by nature. Something specific is happening, and Carl Jung had a real explanation for why the smallest choices become the hardest exactly when the biggest things in your life feel the most unstable. Jung believed that the psyche, faced with a genuinely large and uncontrollable uncertainty, often redirects its need for control toward whatever smaller domain remains available. And ordinary daily decisions, what to eat, what to wear, what to watch, become an unconscious battleground for a much larger anxiety that has nowhere else to actually land. This is not really about the small decision itself, which under ordinary circumstances would take seconds. It is the larger uncontrollable uncertainty demanding some kind of resolution and finding, in the absence of any real way to resolve the actual big issue, a smaller and more immediately controllable stand-in to focus on instead. This explains why simple choices suddenly feel disproportionately heavy during genuinely difficult periods, since the actual decision-making capacity being taxed is not really being asked to choose between dinner options. It is being asked, indirectly, to somehow resolve an anxiety about something entirely different and considerably larger, and no small everyday decision was ever actually built to carry that kind of weight. If you recognize this pattern in your own life, hear this clearly. Sudden difficulty with ordinary small decisions during a hard period is not evidence that you have become generally incapable or newly indecisive. It is a genuine, predictable sign that your larger, actual anxiety currently has nowhere legitimate to go, and it is quietly borrowing your smaller decisions as an outlet, simply because they are the closest available thing that feels like it might offer some sense of control. Here is what actually helps. It helps enormously to deliberately reduce the number of small decisions you are actually required to make during a genuinely hard period, rather than expecting yourself to handle ordinary decision volume with the same ease you would under normal circumstances. Simplify meals to a small repeated rotation. Choose outfits in advance. Remove as many small optional decisions from your day as realistically possible, freeing up the depleted capacity that a much larger, uncontrollable anxiety is currently consuming. There is a second thing worth doing directly, and it addresses the actual source rather than only its smaller symptom. It helps to give the larger, real anxiety a legitimate and specific outlet, a scheduled time to actually think through or discuss the bigger, uncontrollable issue, rather than leaving it to circulate constantly in the background and quietly hijack every small decision throughout the day. Even without resolving the big issue itself, simply giving it a dedicated, acknowledged space often reduces how much it needs to lead into decisions that were never meant to carry it. Think honestly about the last time an ordinary small decision felt genuinely paralyzing, and consider what larger, actually uncontrollable uncertainty might have been quietly borrowing that small decision as its outlet. Right below the single word for the bigger issue you suspect is actually behind your recent difficulty with small ordinary choices. Naming it and deliberately reducing your small decision load while that larger issue remains unresolved is the real and practical way this specific paralysis finally starts to ease. Because sudden difficulty with ordinary, small decisions was never, according to Carl Jung's understanding, evidence of general indecisiveness. It was a much larger, genuinely uncontrollable anxiety, quietly borrowing your smallest choices as the only outlet currently available to it.